Hello and welcome to the Gridiron Waiver Wire Report going into week 6 of the season, and with coronavirus ravaging the fixture list. I mean, the NFL just being so determined not to extend the season and moving around 8 different fixtures, and with injuries and everything abound, there's still plenty of opportunity to go out there and find guys that are getting touches, that are getting opportunity, and that are going to be delivering fantasy points for you. So delighted to say, Will Gavin, that I am joined as always by Pete Rogers from Fake Teams. Pete, a good week for you this week?
No. I was at my brother-in-law's wedding over the weekend, so I did very little fantasy kind of tweaking, which sometimes really pans out for you when you don't overthink things and just play, your guys and they work out. Did not happen this week. So unfortunately, it's back to the drawing board for week 6.
Well, I finally dropped Miles Sanders after 4 weeks of frustration, and he delivers a 2-touchdown day. So there we go. It's
what do you know?
The fantasy gods shining on us. But we've got some good tips for you, some good advice for this week. So let's get to our top 5 waiver wire pickups for this week. And let's start off with, astonishingly, a skill position player at the Miami Dolphins, Preston Williams.
And we've been waiting forever for Preston Williams to finally have everything click into gear this year. We saw him. He came out last year, played really well, then obviously tore his ACL and missed a large part of the season. And so this year, people were having the expectation he'd step in, be that number 2 wide receiver right along Devontae Parker and shine. And it hasn't been that way, but we finally got to see the Preston Williams that we expected this week against the 49ers. 4 catches, 106 yards, and a touchdown. So as looks like he's starting to get back into that groove with Ryan Fitzpatrick still under center. That guy's just going to throw the ball around and let his receivers to go make plays. They have the Broncos, Chargers, and Rams coming up. That's a pretty good schedule for them moving forward. So definitely Preston Williams is a guy that you can, it's now time to start getting comfortable with adding him and starting him pretty regularly again.
Yeah, and if you are looking at this and you're saying, but they just played the 49ers, who have one of the worst defensive backfields in football, you've just run through a few prime examples, and then they get back-to-back weeks against the Jets. So either side of a bye. So honestly, Preston Williams is going to be playable for the next 6 or 7 weeks here. Let's talk about our first ever quarterback to hit the waiver wire report. And astonishingly, it's the Red Rifle, Andy Dalton.
You love to see it. Andy Dalton stepping back onto the NFL field.
You wish the circumstances were a little less horrific,
yes, you wish it wasn't coming with Dak exploding his ankle, but here we are. And Dalton, I understand that it's fun to make fun of him, or maybe you it's one of those ads where you're like, oh God, do I really want to put my faith in Andy Dalton? But we've seen Andy Dalton throughout his career with the Bengals. He plays to the level of talent around him, right? He had an almost MVP season, 5 or so years back when he was surrounded by, Tyler Eifert at his peak, AJ Green at his peak. And that was when they also had, Marvin Jones was still there. And now he's playing with the best supporting cast he's ever had. You have Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup, and then you obviously have Ezekiel Elliott coming out of the backfield. Andy Dalton is a guy who I think is going to have a QB2 floor and can flirt with QB1 production from a week-to-week basis. His upcoming games, Cardinals, Washington, and the Eagles, those are all teams, all secondaries that quarterbacks can take advantage of. And again, with the talent that he's got around him and in this offense that is going to, it's a smart offense. They know they're going to get people open. They're going to make this offense catered towards Dalton's skill set. So I like Dalton if you are streaming quarterbacks, or if you've kind of been hit with the quarterback injuries. I know for instance, have had Cam Newton on my bench because of COVID. Dalton is a great guy who you can go stream for a couple of weeks at the very least.
Plus, he gets to face the NFC East a bunch more times this season, and you always like to see it. Let's talk about a guy who is, previously a first-round pick. I remember the days of 1,400-yard, 10-touchdown seasons for this guy. Now he's sitting at 3 on our waiver wire report. It's Alshon Jeffery of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah, so he's finally going to set foot on the field in week 6, it seems like, and not a moment too soon. The Eagles offense has been struggling to figure out what exactly it is. Carson Wentz has no idea who his number 1 receiver is, and the hope here is that Alshon Jeffery will be that guy. Obviously, we had Travis Fulgham kind of go off against the Steelers this past week, but there's uncertainty as to who that number one receiver is in Philly. And I am not willing to like invest waiver FAAB money, my, lineup on a receiver until we see Alshon Jeffery play at least 1 to 2 games with the Eagles to see whether or not that number one role is his, is not his for the taking. We saw Greg Ward have a couple good games. We've seen Travis Fulgham. Like, the Eagles are rotating who that number one receiver is. I think it's just they've been waiting for Alshon Jeffery to get healthy. He is now healthy. Let's see what he can do in this offense, and let's see how much this helps Carson Wentz.
Now in it too, and people need to remember that fantasy football is a week-to-week game. It's cheesy. It sounds like you're talking like an NFL coach. You've just got to go 1-0 this week. But sometimes you can find a big advantage on the waiver wire that even just helps you win that week's matchup. And by the sounds of it, with a bye week upcoming for the Vikings, even if Dalvin Cook's injury isn't too nasty, they aren't probably going to risk him against the Falcons this weekend. And the Falcons are 0-5 and playing like, dog mess. So Alexander Mattison in at 2.
Yeah. So we've seen Madison, even with Dalvin Cook on the field, Madison has shown that he has, he's produced. And then when Dalvin Cook is off, Madison came in against the Seahawks, 20 carries, 112 yards, and also saw 3 catches for 24 yards. He instantly just stepped into Dalvin Cook and thrived, right? And we're going to see that against the Falcons. The Falcons defense is absolutely terrible, both against stopping the run and stopping running backs catching the ball. So if Cook does miss this week, Madison, like plug and play RB1, no questions asked. He should be the guy who you should go get, especially if you are a Cook, if you have Cook on your squad. If you're a Cook manager and you're now suddenly going to be without him for this week, go spend your FAAB on Madison and make sure that you have that to win this week. And then when the bye comes, Cook will be healthy and you'll be able to run with him for moving on for the rest of the season.
And then finally, our number one waiver wire pickup this week, a guy who maybe he's owned in a few of your leagues already with the anticipation of him returning from injury, but now he's healthy, now he's on the field, and now he's making some freak catches like he did on Monday Night Football. You may well find that Mike Williams is on the waiver wire.
Yeah, Mike Williams is, I think, the number one waiver wire target this week. If you are basically any guy who needs wide receiver help, he not only coming off of a huge game where he looked the healthiest he's ever been. He had five catches, 109 yards, and 2 touchdowns. But also Keenan Allen left the game early with a back injury. We don't know how serious that is, but if Allen misses any sort of time, even if it's like a couple of weeks, Mike Williams is now going to be the number one wide receiver in that offense, in an offense where Justin Herbert has a strong arm and looks to throw the ball downfield. And you said it, Mike Williams, there might not be a better jump ball receiver than Mike Williams. He is exceptional at using his length to go up and get those contested balls. And we've seen that in the red zone, particularly, is where he can thrive. So he could be a guy who maybe gets you 50 to 60 yards with regularity, but is always a threat to have a double-digit touchdown game without question.
Lovely stuff. Well, that's your waiver wire report for the upcoming week 6. We hope you have success. Find some of those players and they bring you some points this weekend. Pete, you do a full top 10 for people who are in deeper leagues. So where can they find out more information?
Yeah, so I write a whole bunch of waiver wire stuff, faketeams.com. You can go check that out. Also follow me on Twitter at Pete M. Rogers. Always happy to talk fantasy football there.
And of course, keep checking out all our content here on Gridiron, including the Gridiron Show podcast, in which we'll be discussing all the action from this week and the impact it'll mean going forward as well. We have our weekly chats with Brian Billick. We have loads of great content going up there. So at Gridiron on Twitter, at UK Gridiron, do all that good stuff. Subscribe, hit the little alarm button so that you get notifications and all that good stuff. See, I'm becoming a YouTuber. Hooray! You're killing it. You're doing it. Thank you for listening and watching. This has been the Gridiron Waiver Report.